Hi there, this is our lesson 136, and in this class I will show you the modo imperativo afirmativo, that is the imperative tense in the affirmative. Why? Because in Spanish there are some differences between the imperative in the affirmative and the imperative in the negative, right? Mainly for the second person of the singular and the second person of the plural, that is for you singular and you plural. In the imperative, the conjugation changes for the affirmative and the negative in these two subject pronouns. So we will divide the conjugation first for the imperative affirmative, and in the next lesson I will show you the imperative in the negative. So before we begin, let me show you again which are the verbal tenses that we will learn in this set of 22 PowerPoint video lessons that I have prepared. You can see these we have already done. So in the next lessons we will see all these, right? And this page is actually what we call the modo indicativo, right? It is the most fundamental group of conjugation tenses, okay, in Spanish. And this one is a bit more rare, but it's also important that you learn it. We call it the modo subjuntivo or tiempos de subjuntivo, right? And this is formed by 6 more conjugation tenses, okay? So we will see all these in due time, right? Now let's get into our topic, the imperative, the affirmative, okay? And we will begin with the first group of verbs, that is the verbs that end with the letters AR, right? This is the bigger group of verbs, right? And it is the group that has less irregulars. So let's begin. We'll take as an example of a regular verb of this first group, the verb hablar, which is to speak. Example, habla, or speak. You can see here that we are omitting the subject pronoun, right? We can say habla tú, right? However, in Spanish, we can always omit the subject pronoun because the conjugation of the verb always gives us a hint regarding who is the subject of the sentence, right? So it's always correct grammatically correct to say a verb without providing the subject or the subject pronoun, right? Maybe there is information missing, but grammatically it's correct. So let's begin. Remember in the imperative, we never begin with the first person of the singular, with the pronoun I, right? Because that makes no sense to give a command to oneself. So we always begin in the imperative with the you, with the second person of the singular. So let's see. Habla tú, for you speak. Hable él, or hable ella, or hable usted. Hablemos nosotros, we speak. Hablad vosotros, you speak, you plural. Hablen ustedes, also you speak, and hablen ellos, they speak. In English, when we say the imperative, right, when we speak in the imperative, we use the verb in the infinitive, right? Speak, right? Walk. However, in Spanish, there is a unique conjugation for the imperative, so it is very recognizable when we read or listen to a verb that is conjugated in the imperative, right? Also, take a look at the second case, hable él or ella or usted. Usted means the same as you, as tú, but usted is the formal you. So, while usted is a formal you, it conjugates as he or as she. That's why we have written it in the same line as él or as ella. And in the case of vosotros and ustedes are synonyms, but they conjugate differently, right? Vosotros is spoken in Spain, ustedes is spoken in Latin America. So let's continue with the second group of verbs, right? The verbs that end in er or er. Example, verb comer. Comer is to eat, and this is a regular verb of the second group. Example, come, eat. Come tú, you eat. Coma él, or coma ella, or coma usted, giving a command. Comamos nosotros, we eat, or let's eat. Comed vosotros, you eat, you plural. Coman ustedes, also you eat. And coman ellos, they eat. Okay, so see how the root of the verb remains the same, unchanged, right? The root of the verb is what remains once we strip out the ending from the infinitive, right? So the infinitive is comer. The last two letters are the ones that determine what group the verb belongs to. So we remove those two letters, and what remains is the root of the verb, okay? In red, we can see the ending that is appropriate for each of those subject pronouns for the imperative affirmative. Now we will end our lesson with the third and last group of Spanish verbs, the group of verbs that end in ir. This third group is the smallest of the three groups, and it's also the one that has more irregular verbs. Example of a regular verb of the third group, the verb vivir. Vivir means to live. Example, vive or live. Vive tú. Viva él or viva ella or viva usted. Vivamos nosotros. Vivid vosotros. Vivan ustedes. And vivan ellos. Let's read this again, one more time. Vive tú, you live. Viva él, he live. Or viva usted, you live, you plural. Vivamos nosotros, let's live. Vivid vosotros, you live. Vivan ustedes, you live. And vivan ellos, they live, in the imperative affirmative. So this is the end of our lesson 136, and I will show you how to conjugate the imperative in the negative in our next lesson. So I expect to see you there, and you will see how the first one here and the fourth will be changing for the negative. That is tú and vosotros.